Safety and Parking Commission to order. And I scared Commissioner Couchy out of her chair. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Corporal Thompson, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll move on to roll call. Ms. Brewer, can we have a roll call, please?
Here. Here.
Here. And for the record, Commissioner Israelit is on her way. Hopefully be here in about 10 minutes. All right, so there were no minutes. We'll get minutes in June to be reviewed and approved. So we'll move on to public comments. And does anybody, I have no cards for public comments, no public comments from the audience. Okay, so we'll close section 5. Mr. Wong, I think we probably need Commissioner Israelit here before we talk about
Sure.
Hillside Drive.
Through the chair,
Yes.
just to let the folks know that are both in attendance as well as attendance online. Tonight's meeting, as it's been for several months, if not going on a year, we're a hybrid meeting, meaning we have an online component as well as an in-person component. However, for the folks that are online, because of certain activities of other folks, we are not able to they're not able to respond online. You can't send a text message and we won't open up the mics. That's by decree of council. So just to let everyone know that. So only the folks present or have sent emails by 4 o'clock today to public comment@burlingame.org will be on the record.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Wong. And I will recognize that we received 5 emails with regards to the Hillside Drive improvements. So hopefully you all had a chance to read those. Mr. Wong, did you want to move item 6B up? Or, okay, okay, yeah. Since that's informational, I think probably.
Is it by chairman or do you want to need a vote?
So are there any dissenting votes of moving 6B up? Or are we good?
Nope.
Okay. I would prefer to wait for 6A till Commissioner Israelit gets here.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Go ahead.
All right. So thank you, Chair Martos. This item is an update. So no, we're not seeking any motion or any support on this. This will be discussed tonight or giving you an update on. Switch. So as you know, just to give folks the background, part of the Bicycle Boulevard project, Carmel, there are 12 blocks and there are 12 stations out there right now. As you can see that. So we dive into it a little bit more. Here we're looking at the westernmost. To the left is our, as we cross into Hillsborough border. And then Vancouver, immediately north of Vancouver here is per block. Again, going down here. So the first speed cushion that was recommended to remove is the one just on the other side, just west of Cortez. The thought was you're approaching a stop controlled intersection. You're already slowing down between gaps. So on either side of the always stop, we're proposing, again, here's the next side on the other side, Cortez, those 2 speed cushions would be removed. Then again, we continue maintain the one on Balboa, signalized intersection as we're going east. Then as we cross El Camino, the one over between Cappuccino and El Camino will remain. However, the one between Cappuccino and Paloma, again, the always stop that was installed as part of the Bicycle Boulevard, we would remove that speed cushion. And as we continue east, we would remove the other one between Laguna and Paloma. And then again, the others remain, as you can see on these aerials that they're there. The other change, this is what the speed cushions look like out there, a 2-section speed cushion. So what we will be doing and why it's been delayed, we had to get the additional part. We are going to make them a 3-piece cushion. So rather than come over and a bump, it's less abrupt. It's more of a speed table. You go over, you ride it, and then you come down. So you don't have a point, which I think folks are feeling. And maybe that's the abruptness that we've seen. So we're going to be adding a portion there. And that's the change. So that'll occur on all the remaining speed cushions. So with that, it would look like it does on this photo, where we've removed 4 of them. So there's 8 remaining. And this work, because of the delay in getting that one section, we're anticipating it can be completed hopefully next week, sometime next week. I don't know when, but we thought it would be done this week and we could report that it was done at the meeting, but that's not the case. So when your fellow residents ask, this is the latest. We're removing 4 speed cushions. We're modifying the others to make them less abrupt, and we'll go from there and then continue to monitor like we did up to this point. So with that, if you have any questions, that ends that presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wong. So what I'd like to do is allow the commission to ask questions on this project, and then we'll go to the public if there are any questions on this. Welcome, Commissioner Israelit. So glad you're here.
Would you like me to also ask my questions?
On this project? Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll start with you.
Okay. My apologies for being late. I was hoping the fact that I did come to the last meeting when I wasn't supposed to, maybe sort of evened it out. Mr. Wong, thank you so much for reevaluating this stretch, because we did hear so many complaints, and I know we hear a lot of complaints about change in general. It's always going to be a little disconcerting, but I think that this particular intervention, for the various reasons that you mentioned, was made a lot of people unhappy. My question is, so the speed bumps will remain that don't have like the stop signs in that particular block, but so I see how many remain, and I think that's good. I know that our city acquired the speed bumps that we did use because they were the ones that were available. And there would be a delay if we tried to get another type. That was at least what I had heard from Syed. So by adding that middle section and making it more of a table and less of a point, do we have any data like what a comfortable speed to go over this kind of speed bump would be? I'm just curious how much it affects it, because I know the ones we have right now, it's quite jarring at like 8 miles an hour. And I was just wondering, did the manufacturer or provider of these say a speed that's comfortable?
Don't know that answer. We can look it up. I can't imagine they would, just because, as you know, everyone drives differently. So I can try to look that up, but just knowing that, again, it's the taper, right? When you have that point, you're really going to feel it. But hopefully here it's more gradual. And then again, just like when we install the original ones, we'll get feedback from folks, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, I could take a look. I can't imagine that.
I'm sure we'll just try them out too and just see. And my other question was, I noticed that with the lighting, the dappled lighting with trees on that particular street, you have those 2 white, I guess they're arrows that allow you to notice that there's a speed bump from your approach on one side. Sometimes those are actually really hard to see because of the trees and people parking nearby. Is it possible to get the white arrows on both sides in the middle section for just to give it better advance warning for motorists that they're coming up?
And sorry, that's not, I believe we're gonna, and also enhance that, either the cushion itself or the pavement markings before will show it.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to check with Mr. Yang on that, but I believe that change is in addition to what you see here.
You guys are all over this. Thank you. It's good.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Israelit.
Text me if he's watching tonight to confirm.
Okay. Who would like to go next? Question?
I have no question.
No questions?
Yeah, I don't have.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Wong, I did have one question. So on this slide here,
Sure.
are the tables, are they going to be gapped like it shows in that lower picture? Okay, so there'll be a gap in the middle, or is it one cushion?
Through the chair, you're talking about the asphalt.
Yep.
That should continue, right?
Okay,
Allow emergency vehicles to go through that, so they.
okay. Okay, and it's spaced appropriately, I'm assuming, for emergency vehicles. A regular car can't. Yeah, we'll have to go over the cushion. Okay, okay,
Part of it.
yep.
Right.
Okay. All right, if there are no further questions, I'll open it up to the public. Any questions on this item 6B about the speed cushions on Carmelita? Yep, go ahead, step up to the mic. Tell us your name if you don't mind.
Hi, I'm Lucas Ree. I live on 1509 Bernal. I'm here for a school project. I recently got my license, and I actually remember practicing and driving over these speed bumps. But can I ask what the original purpose was for the original implementation for them?
Go ahead, sure.
Sure. So this was part of a bicycle boulevard project. So the bicycle boulevards are streets that we're not able to put like a class 2, a marked bike lane.
Mm.
And so the thought of it is to not only, you see on this roadway, there are what we call sharrows that you have, to enhance it, to further slow down the speeds for bicyclists, in addition to not go to class 3. So this is the method that was selected to slow down the speed.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and if you have any other questions, feel free, I heard school project, feel free to email Mr. Wong at any time and he'll respond. All right? 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 It's a school project. We've done that before. Yeah,
Day,
we have.
night.
All right. All right. No other public comment on this item. I'll close public comment. There was nothing on Zoom, email for this. Okay, good. All right. So,
Do you want an update?
so then we can provide our comments, update on,
7 points.
say again,
7 points.
7 points?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So coming back.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha. Thank you. All right. But, so comments on this project? Commissioners, any concerns?
Mm-mm.
Just one last comment.
Yep, go ahead.
I feel like I'm doing all the talking tonight, but one last comment is, and it sort of goes along with, I think, what I've discussed with our commissioner, Arlene.
Her.
Vice
Her.
Chair,
She, at Couch,
First.
that, you know, it would be nice, like when we do these temporary things like for Lion Hogue, you know, and we say, well, we're going to come back and revisit in 6 months. If we have some way to actually get that on the calendar to make sure, you know, that we do bring it in a timely fashion, because sometimes we just forget. And, you know, I think that if we tell the public that we're going to reevaluate it in 6 months, we should probably like somehow mark it on the calendar or something so we can bring it back.
And through chair, that sometimes gets difficult because as next project comes in and it takes up, it's just trying to get it back and getting allocating resources. So we try to kind of give you a rough idea, but we'll try to do better on that. I also like to mention for this project, I believe we're going to try to so you guys don't have to bear the burden of it. We'll put it in e-use that once the improvement's been done, we'll let the folks know so they don't ask you folks every time they see you. So
Thank you.
yeah, I think that's part of it. We'll try to do some outreach on that.
all right, very good. I hope to see some positive emails after the changes. All right, I'll close item 6B and we moved item 6B up in the agenda for a few reasons, but now that we have our full commission minus Commissioner Brown and more of the public here, we'll go back to 6A, which is the proposal for pedestrian improvements on Hillside Drive. So Mr. Wong, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Chair Marquez. Let me get this one up. Thank you. As we mentioned, this project came about with a subcommittee on Hillside. Previously, we'll go over it within the presentation. So it's, anyway, the proposal to implement pedestrian improvements along the Hillside Drive corridor. So the goals tonight, obviously, make the presentation of the the new improvements or the revised improvements, obtain feedback from the commission, the rest of the commission, as well as the public. Seek a motion of support for the proposed improvements. Once that's done, the next phase would be just, we're going to get someone to jot down these on a quick plan. It's not very difficult, but we'll have someone do that, and then we'll go out and see what it is and obtain a contractor to install these, which again, we're being proposed are sign and striping related. And then once that's in, we are looking for some additional, we'll seek out the additional funding for the other additional improvements that I'll show you. So give everyone a little history on this, and there's only one commissioner that was back at this. Back in 2015, just prior to Hoover School reopening, there was no pedestrian plan out there. There was no crosswalks, there was no stop controlled intersection. Commission got wind of this, as well as there was a lot of feedback from some of the community members because, and just to give folks a little education, the planning commission sees a lot of projects, and we have discussions with their developer. The schools, even though they're located in Burlingame, they only go through the state architect's office. So all their plans aren't reviewed by our staff here. It goes directly there, and there's no communication, including offsite improvements that would occur. So with that, once that occurred and there was wind of it that there were no offsite safe pedestrian improvements, the Traffic Safety Commission was involved, as well as staff. We went out, we even did a report to identify locations and possible improvements, and worked with the school district on a cost share agreement on some of these. And so they included, out there are turn restrictions that we have in many schools, parking restrictions. We put in high visibility crosswalks, mid-block crosswalks, and we put stop controls at a couple of intersections, which you'll see there. And all these were done just in time for Hoover's reopening in 2016. Subsequent after that, we had also had some higher ones that we weren't able to achieve on that project, such as there was always proposed to have sidewalks along Summit, and we were successful in obtaining a grant. So now there are sidewalks along Summit. The one part that folks want sidewalks, but it's more difficult, is along Easton. There's an asphalt, for those of you who've been up there, there's an asphalt walkway that leads to the school that at one point was really beaten up. However, we share Easton at that point with Hillsborough, and there was discussions why we couldn't put a true sidewalk. So that pathway, at some point, we used one of our resurfacing projects, and we resurfaced it and took out some of the bumps caused by trees. So with that, we added a couple more improvements. Now for the rest of the folks, last year, we formed, this commission formed a subcommittee to review pedestrian and traffic calming improvements along the hillside corridor. Last October, we reviewed those improvements, and we got a lot of feedback on what was proposed. And so we're bringing it back now, the kind of the revised version of what was there, taking in all the feedback that we got. And just to cut to the chase on this one, with feedback from fire, Hillside, we are not considering any sort of speed cushions along Hillside. Fire, it's one of the running routes, so that would affect their emergency response time, as well as its arterial. You know, further up, there are speed humps, but those are in the right of way of the county, so those aren't what we put in. So at this time, we're not considering speed cushions on Hillside. And so lastly, staff has been working, we collected traffic data we share tonight for Hillside Drive, as well as conducted an evaluation for potential crosswalks on Hillside. So our first slide, here's the corridor. To the left here is Alvarado. You can see a little logo for Hoover School all the way to the left. We have Hillside going down. You see the various streets, as well as Easton on the bottom of the screen, and Hillside at Vancouver. That's the other stop control. So that entire stretch, which is about a little over 2,000 feet, there are no stop controls, as well as no crosswalks, marked crosswalks. So looking at the data, the collision history. So this is over a 10+ year period. I believe it's 2013 to 2024, there have been 4 reported collisions along this corridor. 2 of them, actually both of the pedestrian related ones occurred at Alvarado and Hillside Circle. And I think if some of you recall from the commission, some of them were, the drivers were definitely in error. One was they didn't defrost their windshield, and the other one might have been sun in their eyes because it's an all-way stop controlled intersection. And the other 2 were right away, someone coming out, someone not yielding. Looking at the speed and volume data. So interestingly enough, and you might guess, going downhill, we've reported an 85th percentile speed. So that means what 85% of the people are going at 36 miles an hour or below. And then 15 are obviously above that. So we've got 36 in the downhill section and 34 on the uphill section, and with volumes roughly 2,200 in each direction, which is appropriate for this road. And the posted speed is 30 miles an hour along this section. So next, we did a pedestrian gap analysis. So that involved staff going out there during the peak period. So that was during during the morning rush hour when school. So that's between 8:30. So between 8 and 9 is when we went out there, as well as in the afternoon from I think 2 to 3. And we stayed after if we saw a peak. So what the criteria asked for was there are at least 20 pedestrians crossing Hillside during the highest hour of activity. Also during the highest hour activity, there is on average less than 1 gap per minute. And how that gap is measured is you take into account, and even including a senior or school, if they're walking at a certain pace, and you measure that off of what the distance of Hillside is, the width of Hillside. And so that's your gap. So let's just say it takes someone 15 seconds to walk across. You would need gaps of 15 seconds in order to do that. So that's what it was looking. And the last one of the other criteria is it on a direct route of a significant pedestrian generator, which a school would qualify for, or within 1,000 feet. So that might be the one that it goes on there that qualifies. But when we looked at it, we didn't find 20 pedestrians crossing Hillside in any of those peak periods during the highest activity. And also when we analyzed the gaps, we did find adequate gaps that people can cross within that peak period. They had time and several longer gaps than what was required. However, since last October, the subcommittee has gone back out there and taken another look. I've been out there with them on occasion. And they made some key observations. One being the route of pedestrians that potentially they're using Easton, so they need to cross Hillside. Part of the reason is parents have strollers, their kids are starting to ride bicycles or scooters. And as you get towards the upper part of Hillside, it starts getting a little steeper, and many of them might feel more comfortable on Easton being a little flatter. So that was something that we were not aware of. We had heard, so we're taking that into consideration, as well as we did get feedback from the community of some similar actions being taken. So where does that leave us? So based on that feedback from the subcommittee, what we're proposing is to enhance one of the crosswalks, and the one we selected, the westernmost unmarked crosswalk at Cabrillo. Castillo. And there's a couple of instances of that as well. With a high visibility crosswalk, as well as quick build bulb out. If you look on here, Castillo is roughly midway between Alvarado and Vancouver. And we did obviously observe pedestrian activity there. The other part about this is right now what we're proposing is the striping and signing improvements. Then moving forward, we'll try to obtain funding and put the rapid flashing beacons on, and I'll show you what those look like. What we did notice, as you saw, the speeds, while they aren't excessive, they're up on the higher end. So in order to try to control some of that and ease folks walking along the corridor. We're proposing either a rotation of our, actually not ours, but Burlingame Police's radar trailer, which has been up there within the last month, or permanent driver feedback sign, which we'll show you. And interesting enough, when the radar trailer was out there last, we had the opportunity, we have our own data collection devices. We had it out there before, and we placed it out there when the speed radar trailer is out there. And we found there was an 8 to 10 mile drop off in the speed, in the direction the radar trailer was facing. So it was consistent the other direction. I believe it was facing for the downhill traffic, and we saw that, which was interesting. Again, for this, right now, we would rotate the PD's radar trailer out there and then look at trying to obtain the funding for feedback signs. And lastly, we talked about speed cushions are not recommended on Hillside because it's a direct running route for fire station number 35. So the improvements. What we're talking about is, you can see here what's marked. That's called the high visibility crosswalk, where we mark the ladder or the perpendicular lines. We have here what we have quick build bulb out, meaning it's not concrete out here, but it's a bulb out, and it allows the pedestrian to enter the roadway to be seen, but without having to actually enter the travel way. So those are two improvements, as well as in the future, we're looking at the rapid flashing beacons, which you've seen around town on Paloma, over by the community center now, as well as through the roundabout. So those are warning devices. They don't, you have to press the button and they flash, but that just warns drivers. It's not telling the driver to stop. It's a flashing yellow. It's just it's an added feature to make the pedestrian more visible. Again, our BPD's radar trailer is something like this that's being pulled out there. That's where we measure the data on. But what you've seen, these are permanent driver feedback signs, which are installed on a pole, and they're left out there, powered with solar panels. So we don't have to change the batteries, and they stay out there, and they continue to show speed. And lastly, we have the in-pavement pedestrian signs, which is they're about 4 feet high, and they're folks, rather than just have a sign or striping, it's a physical feature at raise, so it forces vehicles to go slow around them, or they hit them and then they flop down and they come back up. And you've seen these around town as well. So Hillside and Castillo, what we're proposing is a crosswalk on the westernmost, a pavement, in-pavement warning sign, as well as bolding out these two locations to reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians, as well as make them more visible. Additionally, here it's not done yet, but there is red curbing, as you know, AB 413. We've talked on that, but that would also be implemented here. So that's what we look at Hillside and Castillo, and then Hillside and Alvarado. We are proposing also to bulb out that section to force vehicles to slow down, otherwise they will run into those, not to cut the corners. Additionally, this pedestrian sign in the middle will force them, they can't cut the crosswalk by going across here. They have to go slower and make this turn. And if you've been out there, this center line has what we call them bots dots, the bumps. These are ones that are on steroids because they're like twice as high. And we can also consider what we've done in California is going actually with the 4-foot yellow ones, which is much more visible. Where it's these, they were put in at another time, but they're probably a little less visible. And lastly, the radar sign, we'd look probably putting one for each direction, and depending on where we put the crosswalk. If it's at Castillo, we probably consider it somewhere here, probably midway, just as you're approaching. We don't want to put it at the crosswalk because we'd rather you be obviously focused on pedestrians in the crosswalk than how fast you're going. So, but that would help in reducing the speed in the corridor. Again, folks that are not paying attention to their speeds and then realizing to slow down. So with that, again, we presented the proposal, the subcommittee proposal. Now we're on the next stage to obtain feedback from the community as well as the rest of the commission. And again, tonight we're seeking the hopefully we get a motion of support. And then we'll go through with this. We'll draft up some quick plans, do a contract, get a contractor, and then we'll implement the striping and signing improvements. And if there's an opportunity, if we can find some funding, we can do it all at once. Otherwise, it'll be phased. Let's get the signing and striping in and then work on the others, but we'll see what we can do because it obviously makes sense to get everything in all at once if we can. With that, that ends the presentation and, yeah, open to all questions and
All right, thank you, Mr. Wong. So for the public, what we'll do is we'll allow the commissioners to ask questions on the project, and then we'll open it up for public comment. Once everyone has had a chance to speak, I'll close public comment, and then the commissioners will discuss and give our recommendation to Mr. Wong on this project. So I'll start with questions from the commissioners. Who wants to start?
I'll stop.
Okay, Vice Chair Cauchi.
So I just have a couple of questions. So Mr. Wong, you talked about there's going to be the flashing beacon at the crosswalk, and it's one that you push. Have we considered the ones that you don't have to push, the ones that see a person? I don't really know how those work, but they see a person crossing and then they flash.
through chair.
Yep.
We're looking at those at some other locations, and the concern with, that I've had previously on other agencies is if that's malfunctioning, your system, I mean, someone may think that it's flashing, right? Because they just assumed every time I've crossed here without pressing a button, it's gone. So this is an active system where someone physically has to press it and then look. As opposed, and we caught it a couple months ago where someone at the one we have at Morel just pressed it and went, right? I mean, we assume that's what they did, but if it was one of those, they would have just done that, like I hit it. So we may try that in other locations, but for this one, I think it's better to have, we have, knock on wood, we haven't had collisions here, and it's because people have been actively watching when they cross. This will enhance that, right? Because you'll be able to see it further away, but there's still look.
Okay. And then my other question, you talked about doing something at Vancouver, but I didn't see what you were going to do at Vancouver.
Sorry, it was Alvarado.
I saw Alvarado, but I thought Vancouver is where you saw people crossing to get to Easton, and that is why I thought,
No, I believe it was, we saw them crossing at one of these other ones. Because obviously in Vancouver, it's an always stop. They have plenty of, I mean, it's an always stop.
okay. So it was Alvarado,
Alvarado's
that people were crossing,
the collisions that we noted, that we.
Okay.
Collisions.
and that's what they were using to get to Easton.
That, and I think they were crossing, we saw them crossing at Columbus. We saw them crossing at, God, kill myself, Castillo.
Castillo.
And so those locations, the ones that are only controlled on the side streets, not at Hillside.
Okay. Okay. Those were my questions.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. Others?
Yeah,
Yeah, Commissioner Johnson.
sure. So I was out there today a bit, and at both 8 o'clock this morning and then 3 o'clock this afternoon to kind of look at sort of the patterns. And this is, I live, just for public record, I live a block from Hillside, so I'm on Montero at Hale. And so I walk my dog through this area a lot. And I guess, so it seems like we're trying to do two things with this project. One is reduce the speed between that stretch and improve the safety of the crossing at Alvarado and Hillside. Those are the two big components if you look at this plan right now. One thing I didn't see was the little tiny stretch at Hillside Circle and Hillside. And if there was any additional safety measures we're looking at that cross section.
Through the chair.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and you also left out one of the other mid-block, or not mid-block, mid-corridor crossings we're talking about. So there are three items, right? Slowing speed.
Yep, yes,
Alvarado.
yep.
But for your question, at Hillside Circle, currently that intersection is always stop, and it does actually have the pedestrian paddle at home that's there. Yeah, at this time, we didn't observe, and I don't think the subcommittee, there was comments on that section. It was more this straightaway corridor because they were concerned about just folks flying up it or the amount of people crossing.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong for the rest of it, Commissioner.
Yes, I think initially we were looking at the straightaway where cars just, make that corner and then accelerate. And partly it's because we also knew there was a complicated history with trying to fiddle around with that stretch you're talking about. We ran into that when we were working on the Mercy High School school safety plan, and it was really hard to find a solution, so we just left that part out for now.
And then I know just just to bring it out to discussion, you guys looked at predominantly Castillo, and is Carlos still open for consideration as another alternative for a crosswalk?
Sure, and base that on whatever feedback we get.
Okay.
Again, Castillo was selected because just breaking it down, it's midway. It made logical sense to have that there, but if there's, again, there was not an overwhelming amount that would trigger one or the other. But there were, we just observed folks there, and as well as being the mid-block, those are the two big things.
And just another observation, just to note that it is the districting for Hoover ends at Columbus. So I think that's why you're seeing some crossover there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Israelet?
I just had one quick question. What are those called again? Those little bumps in the middle of the cement bumps that I thought they were starting to phase them out in general in highway use or whatever.
They're called bot stots.
Yeah, they're,
Caltrans is phasing them out.
yeah.
Less of them. They still have them on there, the reflective ones. But we find in some cases, especially where the roadway's a little narrow, we still kept with it. But that's on us because it's more costly, what it amounts to.
Well, I was just going to say that based on what's happened, for instance, California and Truesdale, when we were sort of marking that out for better turns for cyclist protection, I think that those little bumps are actually a little more effective than the taller paddles, because the paddles just get knocked and then they're gone, and they don't get replaced, and they're not cheap. And so I just wanted to see if you also had considered just keeping those the big bumps, because you only go over them once before you
Yeah.
learn really quick.
We can, this would be an addition, but
Okay.
we can start with the improvements if they've been shown here and keep those there, because I haven't heard, people, going through them and not like them, or, again, you're right. The others get knocked down, and then our yard guys have to hustle out there to put them up. So we can keep that out there, and I think this pedestrian sign in the middle will be the front one. And the more message we want to get out there is there are pedestrians crosswalk.
Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Wong, I have several questions about the project, and I also have a procedural question. But let me ask my questions about the project first. So the timeline to implement, do you have a timeline? I don't know if it was in the report.
No, and that depends on, again, when we get it, and then us searching for funding. But we can try to get a striping contractor. It'll take definitely a few weeks to do that, and depends on the amount. If it's over a certain amount, there's procurement things. Because we want to put it in thermoplastic, so we usually go out for that. But I mean, the goal would be this summer. We
Okay.
realistic, but we would try to get it as soon as we can once we've got word and how fast we can get the whole process going.
Okay, so is there some basic funding if we're just talking about striping?
Striping and signing.
Okay. Okay, so if the commission approves tonight, it'll go to council? Does it go to council next, or is it good enough
I'll check.
from our authority to say you're good to go? Okay.
Improvements, we're not altering, we're
Yeah.
enhancing. So.
Yeah, and the money's already available, so that's okay. All right, so I want to be very clear. I heard a lot of things that you want to do. I want to be clear, if you phase it, what are you going to do first? What you're going to do, and what do you want to do, right? Like the rectangular rapid flashing beacons is probably not in the first phase, I'm assuming, right? And some of the other things might not be in the first phase, but lay it out for me and the public.
Sure.
What you're going to do first, what you have money to use for the first phase, and then if you get additional funding, what will be added afterwards? Okay, please? I want to be real clear on that, so we know what we're voting on.
No, I will do that again. So as you can see here again, the crosswalk, the yellow high visibility crosswalk, which you're familiar with, that would be installed on whatever mid-block section or mid-corridor section, as well as these delineators to create the quick build bulb out. As well as add the in-street pedestrian sign. So up at whatever street right now being proposed is Castillo and Hillside, you put the crosswalk here as well as put the delineator around here with the pavement sign. So it's getting their section up. And then up at Alvarado, same treatment, where we're putting in the pedestrian sign here in front of those oversized box dots, as well as it's primarily in this direction to bulb out because these folks are turning, but then we'll add a little bit here. Again, it provides a little space for pedestrians to walk into, and that's the goal of that. So at those two locations, so that would be what we call phase one. Those are things that we have the ability to do now, either an on-call contractor. We just need to make sure it gets sketched up.
Okay. Go ahead, finish.
And the future would be to hopefully obtain,
Well, let me pause you for a moment. And in addition to that phase one work, is the police department trailer going to go out there as well? Is that part of it?
well, I guess that's the other call is if there's a preference.
Yeah.
for Rotating that out there, because there's some folks that when it goes out there, people are more alert because it's something dispatched by PD, or we have the feedback sign that you've seen, the ones that are on the poles that are out there all the time. So that's something we get some feedback on. If there's an interest to do that, knowing that we don't have the 8 to 10 mile an hour speed reduction isn't based on those signs.
But the permanent feedback sign on the pole is going to require extra funding.
It will require.
Okay, but the police trailer does not require extra funding, is that right?
Them to get it out and there's.
Okay.
Patience, so.
Okay, so it's possible that we could put that trailer out there as well to slow things down, and you've observed that it slows things down.
Correct.
Okay, so that would be like phase one, quick things that we can get done.
If we can get back out there, it just depends. on
Okay, okay.
location.
Now, we're not voting on the trailer because that's kind of for you to work out with BPD, but okay, so that's,
I guess the other vote would be if the community didn't want the permanent sign.
Yep.
Preferred the rotation of the trailer for whatever reason, we could.
yeah, well,
But-
okay, so we'll deal with that in a minute. Okay, and then phase two, assuming additional funding is available, would be to enhance what you've done in phase one with what?
Sure. At the mid-quarter location, we would put the flashing beacons.
Okay,
Up at Alvarado, because it's an all-way stop, the flashing beacons are not permitted because it is a controlled intersection. So that you wouldn't be able to put those. You can only put these where it's, like if it's controlled on, obviously, the side streets and you're trying to get folks across Hillside, you could put these in. So these are used usually mid-block, or we'll call it semi-control, where you only have controls on the side streets, not the main line that you're trying to get folks to cross.
okay, so, sorry, I missed something.
I just want to clarify.
So those would be where? Where,
Would only be at this location, because as you
Okay.
can see, you don't have stops on Hillside, only.
Got it.
side streets.
Got it.
Trying to
Okay.
cross.
Okay, so they would not qualify at Alvarado.
Not qualified.
Okay.
Because we have stop control.
Okay, okay, okay. All right, that's okay. No, I just want to clarify it. All right,
So that would be phase two, and as I mentioned, if, depending on where we are and the cost on them, if we can procure the funds sooner than later, if we can find some available funding,
sure.
try to get these in at the same time. But I just want to make sure that it's not the expectation when these go in, that they go in. There's a chance, but the expectation is it's phase one is the striping and signing, and then phase two are the feedback signs and the rapid flashing.
How about the pedestrian paddle? Is that part of phase one? Okay, okay, at both locations. I think there's one already on Alvarado. I didn't, but when you put the new,
At one point.
there is, isn't there? I thought I saw it. Okay, I was up there. Okay, all right. Anyway, okay, so that's all phase one, and that's what we're going to discuss and vote on tonight. Okay, yeah, no problem, no problem. Now, I have a procedural concern. you live on Montero. Are you within 500 feet of the project? Are you within 500 feet of the project where you live?
Well, I'm on our own Hale, so I don't know.
Oh, so that's probably more than 500 feet.
We talked.
Okay. Okay. Good. All right. So
Get a little,
you do not need to recuse
Okay.
yourself.
all right.
All right. Just checking. Okay. So with the questions answered, I want to turn it over to the public. So I'll open it up for public comment. Does anybody want to comment on the project? Please step up and just tell us your name. You're welcome to give us your address too, if you like. Oh, perfect. That helps.
I wonder.
All right, Miss Lewis, and I can
Yes.
pronounce your name and I can read your writings. Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank
I'm off to a good start.
you.
Excuse me. Hello, my name is Sherry Lewis, and I live on the 1400 block of DeSoto Avenue. I'm very close to the corner with Hillside. And I am here as a concerned community member, as someone who lives and crosses Hillside every day, but also because my family has a very personal interest in this issue. I know you noted that there were 4 collisions over the period of 10 years. And one of the 4 that you mentioned, I believe, involved my daughter.
Ooh.
Wow, I can't believe I'm going to get emotional now because it happened almost 5 years ago. But my daughter was crossing Hillside at Alvarado when she was hit by a car. As it was reported to us, we obviously weren't there, but her body flew up in the air about 10 feet. She landed on her other side. It was with enough force that when we arrived, there was a big dent in the car that had hit her. Thank goodness we are so lucky, and she didn't suffer broken bones. She didn't have a head injury. Her physical injuries were relatively minor, and there was the emotional and psychological impact, but we are so very lucky. But obviously, after this happened, it caused our family to think a lot about how it happened, how it could have happened. And so I just wanted to share a couple of things with the commission. First of all, thank you for considering this and trying to make our community safer. As to that particular intersection, so my daughter, not only had she, I'm not sure if I said this, but she was 15 years old at the time. She had looked both ways, and she was 3/4 of the way through the walkway when she was hit. And I guess I think that's significant in light of some of the what I'm hearing or understanding of the proposal, because I think it was called a bump out or that wouldn't have made a difference in this case. She was 3/4 of the way through. And another thing that I wanted to point out, so we have now driven that through that stop sign many times and tried to think about it. And one thing that we have noticed is, by we, I mean myself and my husband, that when you're making that left turn, for a lot of cars, including our car, because of where the metal roof support is, there's kind of a blind spot as you're making the turn, even if you're making it slowly and carefully. And so we've pondered whether some sort of a flashing light or some other kind of an indicator other than just the body of the individual crossing would be
Go ahead and,
good
yeah, go ahead and finish.
enhancement. And I guess I will finish up. I will just say, if anyone on the commission or staff would like to talk to myself or my husband about anything related to our experience, we are happy to be contacted. So please do.
Okay. So I want to ask a question
Sure.
while you're at the podium. Describe for me, what street was your daughter crossing, Alvarado or Hillside?
She was crossing Hillside
She crossed Hillside,
at
going,
Alvarado.
so she was
Cross. So,
going north to south?
so she was at the top, not of the, Alvarado kind of cuts Hillside into
Yep.
parts.
Yep.
So she was at the top of the part that goes from El Camino to Alvarado at that crosswalk, and she was crossing from the side that is closer to Hale. So over to the side that is closer to
The steps.
like east.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
So she was going in
Okay.
that direction. She was 3/4 of the way through when she was hit.
And there's a stop sign right there, so the person went right through the stop sign and hit your daughter.
No.
The person may very well have stopped at the stop sign.
Okay,
No, but after you stop at the stop sign,
Yeah.
then you are turning, and that's when.
okay. And you said left turn lanes or there's a distraction on the left turn lane?
No, it's not the lane. It's that when you're making that turn, even if you are trying to see exactly what's in the crosswalk, there's a blind spot based on the way the car is constructed and the nature of that turn.
The,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's like the roof support by the
Sure.
front window
sure. Okay,
roof. And so, I mean, hopefully if someone is going slow enough and watching the whole time, then they're gonna see somebody, but there is a blind spot. And
Okay.
if there was some sort of I don't know if it's what you were calling a flashing beacon or something that flashed that
Yep.
wouldn't be dependent on someone seeing
Yep.
the actual pedestrian.
okay, okay. All right, all right. I appreciate that feedback.
Do you mind-
Liz, go ahead, Miss, go ahead.
Sherry, just to be clear though, the car was coming down hillside and turning left, or were they going up hillside and turning?
No, they were they were coming down hillside and turning left. Yeah.
On to Alvarado.
Yes.
So they were going this way. Okay,
Exactly. And she was.
okay. And her daughter was going
I
that
mean-
way or this way?
Do you want me to point it out on
Oh.
on the map?
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, got it. All right. All right. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. We appreciate it. Yep.
Yeah.
Other public comment? Yes. Lucas, am I right?
Yes. So I know that lower down on Hillside, there's a few like intersections with a four-way stop, but between like Vancouver and Alvarado, there
Mhm.
like that's like 7 blocks, I think, with no four-way stop intersections. So is there a reason why one cannot be implemented or has chosen not to be?
Mr. Wong, you want to respond? Yeah.
Sure. That Vancouver and Bernal are part of the city's bicycle and pedestrian master plan. And so there's a jog right there at Hillside. So part of the reason is to make it so folks going to BIS, Franklin, coming from the south, would be able to make that, and they have controlled intersections. Because the tough one would be if you're on Hillside, making either a southbound left turn or a northbound left turn to get back on those streets. So those are why those are stop control.
But like, sorry, I'm not sure if that completely like why aren't there other intersections between?
So
that-
and the reason the one's not being recommended here, there's a series of warnings. So
Mhm.
it's stop signs aren't for, the commission's heard this, but they're not for speed control. They're for folks to get, to allow traffic from the side streets to get in when the traffic on the side street's high enough.
Mhm.
The other ones, again, you go further down on Hillside when you get by OLA, we also try to control the entrances to the schools. Like there's
Mm.
one at Hillside Cortez and the
Yeah.
Hillside Cabrillo, and you go on the other side at Easton, there are the same type of controls.
Mhm.
So that's why, there's a special school warrants that we have, and then there's other ones based on volume and collision rates. Being out here, while we didn't run it, just based on the information we got when we did the pedestrian gap study, is that there's not enough side street traffic, nor were there collision triggered it, reported collisions that were triggered.
I see. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, then I will close public comment. Ms. Brewer, we had 5 emails come in. Do you want to, no, I know, but do we say who sent the emails?
Yes.
Forgot what the procedure was.
Yeah, just the names and the number of emails.
Yeah.
So we did get 5 emails in regards to Hillside. Those emails came from Brian Ben, Michael Clay. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing this person's name right, but Ed Barazzoni, a Jan Robertson, and Manito Velasco.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Brewer. Okay, commission, So you've heard the Phase 1 proposal from Mr. Wong. So we have an opportunity to discuss this now. I hope you had an opportunity to go see the area and observe the traffic conditions before school and after school. It was very informative to me to be up there and see this, but I will let whoever wants to start. And, okay, Commissioner Israel.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Wong, for all the work you've done on this, our little subcommittee project. I am in support of all of the measures we have talked about this evening. I do want to say that although I've heard that you say that the trailer, the police trailer being moved around, being present and then not present can be more effective than a permanent sign. I find that the flashing speed warning signs at the rotary that we have and along, I think it's, I always want to say Amplet, I guess it's North or South Rollins, the road that runs along 101. I find that at least me, and I asked my husband if it was just me, like that I do pay attention to them because they're not flashing. You're approaching, it says slow down, and then it tells you your speed. So I don't want to really rely on a rotation of a trailer that could be pulled for other reasons. I would strongly advocate for permanent speed signs to be used as soon as we can fund them rather than a trailer. And if we have to do a trailer for the time being, clearly it was effective. So I'm all for it. I don't really have strong feelings as to whether the crosswalk is at Castillo or Carlos. But I do think you notice some structural existing driveways and such at those two intersections that could make one a more obvious choice. So I would just go on, what staff recommends. And then I just wanted to say two things, just about the data. If 15% of the cars are going faster than 36 miles an hour on a street, it's a residential 2-lane street where the speed limit is 30, that's really pretty atrocious. That means 1 in 7 cars? Or is that right? 1 in 7? No, that would be, no, I was trying to do quick math and clearly, but Mr. Engineer.
Yep.
I mean, it means that several cars are going like more than 20% over the speed limit. And I know that isn't such a high number that they might receive a ticket. And I know we do not have officers that are patrolling all the time, but I mean, that's pretty disturbing to me. The cars are speeding like that. So I'm so happy we're doing something. And then the other thing is I forgot to mention this, but in the data that you supply where there were 4 accidents in the past 10 years, 3 of those accidents were in the past 4 years.
Mhm.
That's also, important. That means something's changing. So those are, again, for people who are listening, this is part of the justification of why something does need to happen to keep our pedestrians safe on this road. So I'm all for all of the things that you recommended this evening.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Israelit. Who's next?
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson?
So yeah, again, thank you. I'm glad to see this back on the docket, and it's been great to dig into it. A couple of things that I noticed, and I just again going back to sort of the recency of some of the accidents. Obviously, the opening up of Hoover, there was a lot of traffic this morning at Alvarado and Hillside. I saw a lot of defensive pedestrians for good reason, walking their kids to school. And so I'm really glad that this is on, that we're moving forward with some additional safety measures. I think that, again, whether it's Castillo or Carlos is really more of your call. I would say the one thing that I did notice between there's a bigger descent, a steeper decline until you get to Castillo, and then it kind of levels out a bit. My one concern is, even with the flashing beacons, whether, if a driver is caught by surprise, whether they'll have time to slow down enough before they get to Castillo. That would be my only one observation about that, whereas they'll have slowed down a little bit before they get to Carlos, and they might have more of a reaction time. I do think if, with the speed issue, and at least upon initial implementation of the crosswalk at Castillo, having, even if it's temporary measure, making it a priority to have the speed traveling machine, whatever that's called, be there upon implementation of this. So that's just an added measure of safety as people get used to the crosswalk being there, I think will be really important. If we can get something permanent, I think that's even better, because I do think people do respond to that. Other than that, I do think that, whether it's at Carlos or Castillo, it seems like by foot traffic of the kids walking to Hoover, it gives them an opportunity to cross there and not have to deal with waiting till they get to Alvarado to cross, which means that they're going up the other side, the south side of Hillside, and then they avoid that intersection altogether. So for any of the kids coming from Columbus, at least, up several blocks, that might help some of that traffic move across the street before they get to Alvarado.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Vice Chair Couchy?
Yeah, so I too am happy to see this come back and that we're actually going to be able to make some improvements, because there was been quite a bit of requests from the community. We had a meeting, I think that was probably 6 months ago, and this room was filled with concerned citizens who lived in that neighborhood. So happy to see it on the happening. I would say I totally support phase 1, the yellow crosswalk, the bulb out, the in-street head sign. But I too would advocate for the flashing beacon, and trying to prioritize finding the funding for that. Because I do know for the last 5 months now, we've had, as part of the officer's report, a pedestrian has been hit in the crosswalk. And unfortunately, 2 of those have been fatalities. And every single time the driver says, I didn't see the pedestrian. So I think we have to start thinking about some of these high stress corridors and high traffic corridors, of taking advantage of technology with the flashing lights. Because unfortunately, these drivers, again, it just seems to be too common of occurrence. So, and then the permanent radar sign, I think that's a great idea as well. So I support both phase 1 and phase 2 with an urgency on getting the flashing on those crosswalks.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair. Okay. So, Mr. Wong, I was up there Tuesday morning to observe the school traffic, children going to school and just people walking the neighborhood. I was there this morning about the same time, and then I was there this afternoon in the afternoon to see the school traffic when school's let out. And I had some surprising observations. I did not see a lot. I saw very few, let me put it that way. People actually crossing Hillside that were school-aged people. I saw more people walking dogs, taking their morning walk. That was comforting that they were going up Hillside instead of crossing Hillside. There were a few, I'm not saying there were none, but there were a few. And that was pretty consistent both Tuesday and Thursday. In Thursday afternoon, I saw a lot of people crossing at Alvarado. And in fact, all times, I think probably what I saw at Alvarado was the most crossings. So I think it appeared to me from what I observed that most people were going up Hillside, crossing at Alvarado. So that brings me to, what would I recommend? Well, there's a couple of things. So I agree with your proposal for phase one with a couple exceptions. And as Commissioner Johnson pointed out, and I drove this, I drove all the way to the top of Hillside, and I drove down Hillside. And when I got to Castillo, I'm still on the downgrade. But once I hit Carlos, my car had decelerated because there's a long flat between Castillo and Carlos. And it's a natural, deceleration. So that's one point of consideration. Maybe move the crosswalk to Carlos. Drivers have a little more time to slow down. But the other thing is I was standing on the corner near Montero looking down the street. I noticed the visibility at the intersection of Carlos seemed to be better, especially on the south side of the street, than it was at Castillo. Castillo has a lot of trees there, right on that corner. Carlos, you can see on the map there that that southeast corner, there's like nothing. And I think there's a huge palm tree on the other. Yeah, if you zoom in, I just saw more visibility. Yeah, you can see the palm tree, you can see the shadow of it right there. There's more visibility at that intersection. So I think it'll be easier for a driver to see a person crossing there than up the street at Castillo, my opinion on that. I did notice that there is a fire hydrant on both corners, one at Castillo, one at Carlos, and with AB 413, we can maybe red curb all of those. Wherever we put that crosswalk so that there is good visibility for the drivers coming down Hillside to see somebody in the intersection or getting into the crosswalk. So that's what I think, might be an improvement, an enhancement, is to move that crosswalk down to Carlos for those reasons, two reasons that I think are important. But I really want to go up to the top of the hill at Alvarado because I think that's where I saw the most foot traffic. Ms. Lewis, I'm very sorry to hear your daughter, had an incident there. I'm happy to hear she's okay. But I think we should really focus on this. And I think this is a good start. One other thought I had about this, Mr. Wong, is, some intersections we have limit lines, right? To bring people to a stop and give a larger gap between the stop and the crosswalk, right? Maybe that would be a way to enhance this a little more. I don't know if that would cause issues with visibility, but I'm trying to think of other ways we can improve the safety at this intersection because I did see a lot of foot traffic crossing there. So, I don't know if any of the commissioners have any other thoughts there, how we might be able to improve this, or Mr. Wong, if you wanted to comment on how we might be able to improve this. Like the only thing I could think of was limit lines for now, something that's in the budget, right? That we can do right away. I understand the flashing beacons or some other electronic indicator would be ideal, but we don't have that right now. We don't have the funding for that right now, but so any thoughts, Mr. Wong, on that, how we can enhance this and make it a little safer right away?
Through the chair?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to clarify one thing because even though the example here I showed that this is in yellow,
Yeah.
look like this, but it'll be in white. We're too far
Yeah.
from school. So I just want,
Yeah.
in case there's any confusion about that, it'll be a white crosswalk here. But back to your original question. It's tough because again, as I mentioned earlier, we're not permitted to put a rapid flashing beacon here. But one of my communications with a resident as part of this project indicated, and again, this commission doesn't have any power over it, but potentially this would be a good location for a crossing guard because
Yes.
it's
yeah.
that it's not all day that this occurs. But
No.
again, during drop off and pickup periods that this is active. So the person was going to pursue it on their end with school because I believe what happens is the school or the school has to make a request for a crossing guard and then it goes to the district and then both or the city, but PD, then we have discussions on because there's a cost share with that. But that was something that would be appropriate. And again, yes, I'm sorry the incident happened with Miss Lewis's daughter. But one of them was the driver shouldn't have been driving it because they couldn't see out of their windshield. I'm not sure if that was the one, but that was one. And the other one potentially was the son, but I know for a fact that one of those collisions was someone was driving with and they didn't fully defrost their windows. Went over. So that's just poor judgment.
Right. So Mr. Wong, you see how close that limit line is to the crosswalk?
We could look at pushing that back a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And go back to the crosswalk on Hillside. Yeah. So you made me remember something. If you moved that east to the other corner, it looks to me like there's a lot more visibility there. And that's Castillo, but that looks like a better spot for that crosswalk. Now, Carlos might be even more open, but
And there's also
I
a,
would prioritize, visibility for the drivers when you place that crosswalk. Go ahead, Commissioner.
there's also a street light there on that corner, on the east side corner.
Of Castillo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And same with Carlos. It's the east side that has the street light right there.
Okay.
So that would make it safe at night.
That, yes.
At night.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people cross at night, but whatever. I mean, if it makes sense to do it, do it. Why- I don't think it. Is there a preference? Is there a reason why it's on the west side as opposed to the east side?
No.
Okay.
We'll comment on the thing to think about is not that you want it shaded, but if it's too bright,
Mm.
those flashing beacons will get washed out, right? You need to find a balance where there's some shade over it so they pop. Obviously at night the ones on Broadway you could see from the overcrossing.
Yeah.
But when the ones at the roundabout, at times you might not be able, it might be harder to see, right? Because it's full sun.
Mhm.
So, but for the commission, based on your motion of support, what we can do before we move forward is we can go out and take another look at, it sounds like, either Castillo or Carlos for it,
Okay.
make a determination. We just wanted to get something on the paper and we figured this one was halfway and then folks would be, they're on their way to Hoover. So this would be, they're going to be crossing here.
Yeah.
They're coming from that area, but we'll take another look. If that's your recommendation, we can either go either or, and we'll pick the location based on the feedback that we've gotten, and we'll look and see how that actually fits in the field.
And Alvarado, if you have design guidelines that you can move that limit line back a little bit from the crosswalk,
We can look at that. We can look at.
consider that as well.
Chair Martos, can
Um,
I chime in?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to remind you guys that I believe there were 2 pedestrians that have been hit in that crosswalk.
Yep.
There was
Right.
also that grandmother.
Right, right.
So if you need any kind of support when you request a crossing guard, I would say 2 pedestrians struck in the same crosswalk.
And we can let I believe if the parent was part of the PTA, we can let them know.
Mhm.
Sure. Yeah. Hopefully, chief, one of them might be, is on the call, so.
Yeah.
The parent,
Okay.
So.
All right. Commissioner Johnson, you have another
Yeah.
comment or question?
Just a question. One of the things I noticed, because that's where I stood this morning, I would say, I won't give the percentages, but a good portion of rolling stops were happening during that time frame. Not complete stops for sure, and that was coming from both down the hill and up the hill. And it got worse as the pedestrians, as the kids got to school, and then it became, then there was a couple just straight roll throughs. So people are blazing through that area, and I don't know if that's something that we can do more enforcement around, I guess is the question. Police enforcement.
I can't answer that.
I know
You got to look that way.
It's just out to see.
Yeah.
It's maybe a recommendation.
Okay.
for-
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Otherwise, does someone want to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we approve the recommendations as stated by staff with the understanding, taking a look at Carlos versus Castillo, and that we move forward with the recommendations presented this evening.
Second?
Just for clarity,
Yep.
we're moving to, for both phase 1 and phase 2,
Yes.
correct?
The whole project.
Hang on. You all right?
Sorry. No, that would be fine. I mean.
You okay?
To put the phase 2 in as soon as possible.
So are we voting on phase 2 as well?
Phase 2 is part of the proposal. Yeah.
It's the
Okay.
proposal.
Okay, all right. All right, so the motion is phase 1 and phase 2.
Yeah, I don't think you it out separately
No.
just for discussion. So as it's presented, it's like
Yeah.
the whole ball of wax.
Okay, okay. Okay, the funding is kind of phased, but the project, everything that he stated, okay, okay.
Get it in at the same time, we will get it at the same.
Yeah.
time. So.
Okay, very good. And I heard a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all right. Ms. Brewer, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Israelit,
I
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Couchy,
Aye.
Chair Martus.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Wong. We look forward to phase 1 being implemented hopefully this summer. And
Need to go get,
Get an update.
please do, yep.
There'll be project
Yep.
managers update.
We'll get an
A
update.
break for water?
Yeah.
You sure? All right. All right.
Very good days.
Okay. Thank you, public. We appreciate your time and your feedback and the people that sent in emails. All right, we'll move on to item 7A, informational items. Any public comment, informational items, community group update?
Nope.
Nope, nothing. Police department reports?
Was that?
Police department reports, Corporal?
So for the month of April, there were 16 total collisions to report. Hit and run collisions or collisions caused by DUI were filtered out and did not appear in the report. So vehicle involved with, we had 12 collisions were with another motor vehicle. 2 collisions were with a fixed or other object. 1 collision involved a pedestrian. 1 collision involved a bicyclist. And out of all the collisions, 1 resulted in a fatal injury. 8 resulted in minor injury. Collision factors. The most common collision factors were right-of-way violations, unsafe turning movements, and unsafe speed. Some notable reports. Case 887 for us was on the 1400 block of El Camino Real. This was a vehicle into a tree. It occurred during the daytime. The driver was driving northbound, approaching stop traffic. The driver could not apply their brakes in time. They swerved into a tree to avoid hitting stopped vehicles. And unfortunately, this was the collision that resulted in a fatality. Case number 904 was also on El Camino, and this was a vehicle versus a bicyclist. This occurred at dusk or evening time. So the driver of the vehicle was driving southbound on El Camino Real, and they were making a left turn onto eastbound Mills Avenue. There was a bicycle traveling northbound on El Camino, and when the driver made the left turn, they did not see the bicyclist coming, and they struck the bicyclist. And that resulted in major injuries to the bicyclist. The motorist claimed that they did not see the bicycle lamp illuminated on the bike, and the bicyclist stated that his lamp was on. Case number 924, this occurred at California Drive and Carmelita Avenue. This was a vehicle versus a motorized scooter. This collision occurred in the daytime. The motorist was turning left from southbound California Drive into the Caltrain parking lot, and they collided with the scooter who was riding his motorized scooter northbound at California Drive in the bike lane crossing Carmelita Avenue. The motorist claimed that he did not see the scooter at the time of the impact. The next collision is 943, and that occurred on El Camino Real at Broadway, and this was a vehicle versus pedestrian. The motorist was traveling southbound on El Camino, passing Broadway, when suddenly he struck a pedestrian who was running across El Camino Real westbound towards the bus stop. This collision occurred at dusk in the evening time, and multiple witnesses stated the pedestrian ran into the roadway outside of the crosswalk. The pedestrian sustained multiple injuries as a result of the collision, and there was evidence that the pedestrian was intoxicated at the time. Case number 960. This is collision occurred at California Drive and Mejia Avenue. This was a solo electric scooter. They collided with a island in the center of the road. This occurred at dusk or evening time. Subject was riding a motorized scooter northbound on California Drive near Mejia, and they collided with the center island, causing major injury. And then the final case that I have to bring to you is case number 1015, and this occurred at California Drive and Douglas Avenue. This is a vehicle versus vehicle. This collision occurred in the daytime. So the motorist was driving eastbound on Douglas Avenue, attempting to turn left onto northbound California, and they did not see the other vehicle traveling southbound on California, and this was a collision that resulted in minor injuries.
All right, thank you, Corporal Thompson. Commissioners, questions? Yes, Commissioner Israelit?
When you say motorized scooter, you mean the kind that you stand on?
To my knowledge, it was, yeah, a standing scooter and an electric scooter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, go ahead.
My question isn't necessarily about the accident itself, but I do think that El Camino is a street that has got very narrow lanes, and there's a lot of tree roots and cars are going fast. There's pretty much an accident on that street several every month. Does it make sense that we would have bicycles not allowed on that street? It just seems like a street that we shouldn't have bicycles on.
And I actually have had the same question recently, just because I've been driving sometimes at rush hour between 8 and 8:30 on El Camino, and will be a cyclist lane, which, no motorized traffic can pass him or her. And it just seems really dangerous. It's a state highway officially, but I don't know, are we allowed to say that bicycles are not allowed on specific roads?
To my knowledge, it would be more of an engineering task, because we can only enforce what is presented
On
to
the
us
book.
by the engineering and the signs and, the signage on the road.
Through Chair.
Yep.
It's a highway, not a freeway, right? Where a freeway, it's limited access. And this one, we probably have to, you may be able to put signs, but again, it's a facility. It's an arterial for our city. That's what it shows as, right? Yes. And right now there are tree roots and issues that when the El Camino Real renewal project, which is getting much closer, comes about, those will be corrected, and as well as pedestrian facilities along it, and some of the paths that are there to have some access on it. But there is no plan because there's just no room to add bicycle facilities on it. I do know the county, they're working on a Grand Boulevard initiative, which is the entire county, El Camino along the entire stretch. And they're talking about how other folks access, how bicycles, and it'd be more multimodal. And in our discussions, we're doing this, but then other agencies have the same issue. El Camino Real is not either wide enough, or they have their own issues of where it is. So they're talking about, rather than looking at just El Camino, blocks over to see if that's a better route for folks to go and then pull into somewhere else, direct them onto this, just like we do in California. Once it narrows up, we try to get you off California, going southbound, and get you on Laguna, and then hit Broadway, and then you can connect back up. So there are signs for that. Maybe that's something that Caltrans has to consider. It's a countywide thing right now where they're talking about it. So they're going to work on and work on ideas, and then put a report together that indicates where those opportunities could occur.
Okay. And then my only other comment, which I made earlier, is I do think crossing El Camino at Broadway, even though it seemed like the pedestrian was at fault, I do think that is a highly crossed intersection, just because of the downtown as well as the bus stop. Same's going to be true for Burlingame Avenue. I think we all, can name off the 10 intersections that we should consider flashing signals for pedestrians.
Through the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a controlled intersection, so the rapid flashing beacon's not an option at signalized or always stop controlled intersections.
So if the pedestrian, or if the motorist should be stopping, then we can't do anything to enhance the intersection?
I just indicated that you can put a rapid flashing beacon at that. There are other things you can consider.
But you can't do,
Pedestrians having their own phase.
Mhm.
But you wouldn't be able to put what we showed earlier, those rapid flashing beacon section. There's no flashing signal other than the pedestrian countdown at a signalized intersection for pets.
just because the last two fatalities have been intersections where there is a stoplight.
But I mean, that's also, at some point, the driver has to have some responsibility on that. I mean, there's, at least with the tools we have now, right? And maybe with the future, the AI or something, there's something that does not exist at this time.
But I understand that, the driver was probably at fault, but there still is a death. So anything we can do to avoid the death and somehow make the pedestrian more seen, because that's the common theme. Even today, I didn't see the scooter. That's what all we hear every time. I didn't see them.
Hopefully Vision Zero will be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Corporal, I was just curious, the bicyclist, the motorized scooter, electric scooter, do they wear helmets? Do they have helmets on? You know,
I can try and
just curious. Couple of majors there. Bicyclist and the electric scooter.
afraid the report that that Sergeant Orloff had attached doesn't have that information.
Okay, no problem. Is it required? Bicyclists and people that ride motorized scooters and electric scooters to wear a helmet?
They're under the age of 18, it's a
Okay.
requirement, but if
Okay.
they're over 18, it is not a requirement.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions for Corporal Thompson?
Just one question. I just realized, what is the island in the road?
So on that stretch of California Drive, there is that center turn lane. And then at some intersections, they have like little concrete raised curb islands. So it seems that the scooter was driving in that center turn lane and hit one of those center
Got it.
concrete islands.
Too bad
All right.
in the bike lane.
All right.
You can see it on the screen. So these.
Yeah. I see. Oh, I thought it was on Mejia. Okay, it's on California. Got it.
All right. Thank you, Corporal Thompson.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, so we will close 7C. No engineers report this month, Mr. Long.
Correct.
Next month, it'll be twice as long, right?
I saw.
Twice as interesting, yeah.
Twice as nice.
All right, and we'll get twice as much pay, right? 0 equals 0. All good. All right, so we'll move on to 7D, the Chair and Commissioners Communications. Anybody have any communication with any public officials? Anything? Well, I was at the California Drive Class 1 bike project meeting last night. Very lightly attended, but very interesting. It's, we'll see that in the near future, right, Mr. Wong? Yeah, but it was good. I like how the bicyclists are going to be protected in that stretch between Oak Grove and the train station. There was a lot of positive feedback, I think, last night. It wasn't heavily attended, but it was good feedback. So look forward to seeing that in the future with the commission. Yeah. And I spoke with Andrew Yang. Is that your? Yeah. So, yeah. So he's already working on the stretch that goes from the train station up to Peninsula. Yeah, that's a little more challenging because you've got the narrow lanes and, the dealerships and the businesses, and yeah, that's a tough one, but he's already working on that. So, yeah, hopefully we'll get a nice connection from Peninsula all the way up to Broadway in the future. That's the only communication I had. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on. 8A, subcommittee reports. And any comments from the public?
I got nothing.
Nothing. You got nothing for us. All right. Hillside Drive, we just talked about that. Thank you, subcommittee or committee members.
Could have a bottle of champagne, celebrate.
Let's celebrate when we see paint on the ground.
Yeah,
How's that?
okay.
Yeah.
How's that? Yeah. And we'll even share it with Mr. Wong. KPIs, Commissioner, Vice Chair Couchy and Commissioner Brown. Vice Chair?
So the update is we have a report completed with recommendations that needs to be a discussion and something that we all agree upon. With my timing of my departure, we need to have this discussion with a special meeting. The date that works for Tony and I is May 14th. So wanted to see who else could come on May 14th.
I could attend via Zoom if that works.
I don't think it does, but you tell me.
Through the chair, just business related trip or
Personal, but not a vacation, if that makes sense.
check with the city attorney on that. I think
Okay,
that's
take,
accommodated.
okay,
Personal,
Okay.
not fun, not for fun.
exactly. Family related.
I will
How about that?
And that evening,
You won't be.
I will not be able to. I have family in town
Okay.
for just 2 days, so I can't.
Okay, so I'm available, and I think Mr. Wong's available. And so we will have a quorum, and it sounded like that was your only availability, so I think we'll move forward with that. I apologize,
I can-
commissioners.
Yep, no worries.
But
I can
we're
dial in if it's allowed.
limited, yep, limited on how much time we have left with Vice Chair Couchy.
The clock is ticking.
Yep.
And then, Tony's right in the middle of all the Giants games, so.
Yeah, priorities, I got it. Okay, there was something else during this, so are you finished, Commissioner, Vice
Yeah, I
Chair
was
Couchy?
just saying he was in the show.
Okay, yep.
I thought he just.
So I was curious about City Thread. You have something coming up, right, Mr. Wong and Commissioner Johnson?
We do.
I wrote a note from last time. It said May 2nd, draft report was going to be released, May 30th, final report, and I think there's a excursion that you're all going on to talk with these people.
No.
So you want
Do
to
you want to give the updates?
update
started?
on that?
We have we have the draft AMP.
Okay.
And so we're looking at that. We should be looking at it. So I've taken a quick look, and then we will have, I believe it's June, just before our next meeting,
Yes,
June 9th, 10th, and 11th. We will be in, or Commissioner Johnson and myself will be in Salt Lake City to go over with their other agencies that have got the process and to share, I guess, best practices or how they managed to accomplish, how the process is working for them is probably the biggest question, because a lot of it is that we have this plan now and how effective is it for those other agencies? And, you know, we have something similar where we have a process which they were happy with that a lot of the other agencies didn't. I mean, and funny when they were presenting it to us last, you know, they asked for a copy of the Candyland chart, which they showed us even nicer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Another,
I remember that.
but we were on the right track.
And ours was pretty colors.
It was pretty colorful.
Yeah.
Theirs had better graphics, but you know, my capability.
We're going to work on that, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we're on the right track. They were happy with a lot of the progress that we already have in place, which may even larger agencies didn't. But
Okay.
We'll find out more. And then the thought was we do something in June, but I think we'll be just back from the trip. So maybe July, we'll report back out on that.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's it for now for City Thread.
okay, okay,
And I've
good.
Yeah, and I've jumped in, and Arlene has been, sorry, Vice Chair County has been amazing in getting me up to speed and giving me the background. So I'm about 75% of the way there, but our feedback is due on the 13th. And then as we discussed, at 30th is the final readout.
Okay. Good. All right, and the last committee report is ECR renewal. Nothing's happened, right? Or Commissioner Israelit?
Nothing yet, waiting on Cal.
Okay, okay,
But you said that they moved it up, like,
We've had a meeting, so they are moving. And it was, yeah, it was with all three agencies, ourselves, Trans and PG&E.
is there a new suggested start date?
I think it's next summer, which is, yeah, but they'll have the plans and things finished this year sooner than later,
summer 2026?
2026. But again, that, as you know,
It's fluid.
but council
Wow.
was on this call and they highly stressed, shall we say, that we need to have that date because the community has been, you know, going along with it, right, or strung along with it.
Right.
Yes, they need to, they stress very, very strongly that that's the case.
And in addition, there are not maintenance repairs being done to our stretch of El Camino.
Right.
Right, because
It's really bad.
All right. So we'll move on. Future agenda items, Mr. Wong? Anything planned?
about city threads.
Yep,
back
yep.
Next month, we anticipate Vision Zero.
Okay,
Your Sai will be, you'll be working on just to bring the rest of the commission up to speed where you.
I'll check my inbox daily.
And what else?
Chair Martos, are you the only one on Vision
Yep,
Zero right
yeah. Right.
It's with council, they have their own, so. We do have other items. That's the only one I can think of that's coming up for next month.
Okay,
Definitely will need some input on
okay,
all the other ones, Rollins, South Rollins, South, whatever, phase 2 that we're calling California Drive.
okay,
And at some point we will bring, I guess, phase 3 of California Drive. But that one's obviously further back.
right,
So
okay.
lots of it. but we-
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll work through that. Unfortunately, I'm going to be working through it alone with you because our trustee vice chair, Commissioner Couchy, is going to be leaving us. This is your last regular meeting, but we're going to have a special meeting, finish off your tenure with the commission. So I want to just acknowledge the good work you really did. I mean, you dug into some things that nobody even thought about that are beneficial to the city and really worked out the details. I talked with some of your colleagues on some of these projects, and there's really a lot of work that's been done to these, flush out good opportunities for the city. So I want to just acknowledge your time on the commission. It's been a year and a half. I wish you were going to finish out your term, but I understand.
You're-
Life goes on. And it's been a pleasure to work with you for a year and a half. I want to wish you the best. I hope we'll see you in town from time to time, but I know you've got a lot of good, exciting travel planned. So thank you for your dedication to this commission and to the city, and I wish you very safe travels. And you know how to reach us, so brag about some of the places you've been. Send us some pictures and things while you're on your travels. But yeah, thank you for everything. And-
I wasn't planning on saying goodbye, but,
Well, kind of let into it a little bit.
Disappear.
but I really enjoyed being on the commission. I do think the traffic, the streets set the tone and the character of the city. And I'm passionate about making it safer and more efficient, traffic more efficient. So I enjoyed being on it. I enjoyed meeting everyone. I'll be cheering in the background, so thank you.
We're going to have to pick another vice chair when she's done with us. So in a month or two, that'll be an agenda item. Any other comments for our trusty vice chair as she heads off into the sunset, literally?
Just
Enjoy yourself.
thank you, and I'm
Yeah.
jealous.
Yes, no, and before we adjourn, I did want to acknowledge something and ask the commission for a moment of silence. Commissioner Israelit, I was made aware that your father passed away recently, and I'm very sorry to hear that. I know we've known each other for quite a while. I remember when you moved your parents from the East Coast to Burlingame, and anybody that's dealt with aging parents or family members can understand what a challenge that can be, especially as they become ill. And it's never, even though it may have been expected, it's never easy or accepted, when it happens. And so my sympathy to you, to your family, to your mother on your loss. And I'd like to just, if for this commission, if we could just take a moment of silence in honor of Commissioner Israelit's father, please, and then we'll adjourn, just maybe 30 seconds here. All right, thank you, everyone, and meeting adjourned.
Thank you for your. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
I was distracted. I'm sorry.
or when-
I'm not